Welcome back, crafty friends. It's Alicia of the Call Me Crafty Al YouTube channel, and I am back today with a little challenge to myself. About a year ago, I created 45 cards in 45 minutes because I was inspired by a video that May made here on YouTube, and she used this really pretty paper mat pad by Prima, and she got 45 cards done in 45 minutes. And all of you card makers know that that is kind of unheard of. But what I wanted to try is I saw this Simple Stories Faith 12 by 12 pad at Hobby Lobby, and it was 50% off, which is always a bonus. And it has tons of cute cut apart cards, which reminded me of that mat stack that I used when I made my 45 cards. So I thought I would get this paper pad and see how many cards I could get out of it. The first thing I did was I went through the paper pad and I took out one piece of each pattern. There are, 24 different pages in here, and there are 2 of each. So what I did, I separated them into cut apart pages and 12 by 12 pattern papers. And I'll go ahead here real quick and just flip through each for you. So these are the cut aparts. And now a look at the pattern papers. To get started, what I'm going to do is cut apart all of these pages into the size, whether it's 3 by 4, 4 by 4, 4 by 6, and then I will be cutting my pattern papers into 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch pieces. So I'll get 4 of those out of each piece of paper, and then I'll have some left over that I can do some layering or some like accent strips with. So I'm going to go ahead and start on that. The top of some of my pattern papers didn't come out perfectly from the paper pad, so on some of these I will be just trimming just a very tiny strip off the top just to get rid of that jagged edge. So that's what you saw me do there. And there I have all of the cut aparts almost ready to go. I did notice that the cards I cut so each of the images or the color bled, and they are different sizes. So some are slightly longer, slightly skinnier. So when I go later to mat these pieces, like especially these little ones, I already know that I'm going to be doing a lot of trimming once I get it on the piece, because what I'll probably do is cut a whole bunch of 3 1/4 by 4 1/4 mats and 4 1/4 by 4 1/4 mats, and because they're a little bit different size, I will probably have to adjust those. I will need to be cutting the 4 by 6s down to 4 by 5 1/4 just so the mat on the card base is the same. So I'm going to have to figure out exactly how I want to cut each one of those. So I'm going to go ahead and start by doing that. So I'll separate these by vertical and horizontal, and then I'll go and I'll cut them down a little bit. What I'm doing on the ones that are 6 inches long is I am cutting off 3/8 from each side if they are centered. And I'm actually going to hang on to these little strips in case they can come in handy later on. Now with a card like this, I don't want to cut into the words, so I'm going to go ahead and just cut it to 5 1/4 inches wide. I'm still leaving most of the white space on the left, but that way I'm just not cutting into any of the words. I was trying to see if I could make this work if I just trimmed a little of the tail on the E off, since the B is a little bit cut off, but unfortunately it won't work. So I'm going to set this one to the side and maybe I'll use it later on a different project. On this card, since taking some space, some off here, would cut into the flowers, I am just going to cut it to 5 1/4 inches wide, all at one time, and that way we just kind of have that box that falls off the edge, and you'll see that on some of the other pieces, so I think that will work okay. I'm going to go ahead and start on the vertical cards, and unless they aren't centered, I'm just going to go ahead and trim 3/8 off the top and bottom like I said before. But on something like this, I am going to trim less off this side than I do the top, just to keep those same proportions on the card. All of these are cut and ready to go. So what I'm going to do now is cut down my 12 by 12 pieces to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. A lot of the papers at the top got a little jagged, you can see there. So when I cut these, I am going to be cutting from here up. That way it is the scraps that might have those little jagged edges in them. I think what I'll do first is cut all of the 4 1/4 strips and then go back and cut them down to 5 1/2 inches wide. I'm going to go ahead now and cut these into 5 1/2 inch pieces. For now, I'm going to leave the leftover strips at the size they are because I'm not sure how I'm going to use these later, so I don't want to cut them if I don't have to. So here I have all of my card bases for the smaller cut apart cards. For now, I'm going to go ahead and put these to the side, and I am going to see about turning these into cards. What I'm going to try to do is search in my cardstock stash and see if I can find some that match the color scheme of these cards. So I'm going to pull out a card that has most of the colors. And I'm just going to go through here and see if I can find anything. And what I'm going to do now is go through and cut some 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch mats, and those will go on the card fronts, and these will be placed on top of those. All of my card bases are cut for my 4 by 5 1/4 inch cards. So I'm going to go through now and match up the card bases or the mats with some of the cards here. And for now I'm just going to pair them up and set them to the side. Now that I have all of my pattern cards or my cut aparts paired up with a cardstock for the back, I'm going to go through and use just a roll of foam tape and adhere those to each of the pieces of cardstock. I just got this tape out of kind of like my adhesive storage. I'm hoping it will work because this has to be more economical than using like pop dots or Stampin' Dimensionals when I have this kind of quantity of cards. If you know of a good place to get cheap or economical foam squares or foam dots, let me know below. I know that my mom recently purchased, I believe they were foam squares on a roll from Dollar Tree, so she was going to let me know what she thought of those. I think the worst part about foam tape is trying to get the release paper off. I've seen crafters use tweezers on their channels, but maybe they have different tweezers or different tape than I do. Oh, there we go. My first card front is ready to go, so I'll just continue with the rest of the stack. I have all of my large cards mounted onto a cardstock mat. Now it is time to put them on card bases. Off camera, I cut down 8.5 by 11 sheets of white cardstock to 4 1/4 inches wide by 11 inches tall, and I'm going to be folding these in half and adhering the card fronts onto each of these. I won't make you stay and watch me fold every single one of these or adhere these onto the fronts, so I stopped at folding after 5. I'll just put together a few cards quickly, I'll do the rest off camera, and then I'll meet you back here. And I now have 17 cards up here that are completely ready to go because each of these had some kind of sentiment or saying on the front. I might go in and add some Wink of Stella or some sequins to the front of those cards when I get ready to give them out, but again, they're pretty much ready to go. I do have 6 cards down here that they were either kind of like journaling cards or just images that when I go to send these out, depending upon the occasion or the reason for the card, I will use die cuts or stamps to embellish these before they go out. I have now spent about 5 hours on the card so far, and that included getting all the papers out of the paper pad, cutting the cards down, cutting the pattern papers down to card size. So I'm sure this video is getting a little bit long. I'm going to go ahead and stop the video here for today, and I will be back tomorrow with part 2. I'm not sure if that will end up being a part 3 yet, but in that video I will create some of the cards using the smaller die cuts. If you enjoyed this video today, I hope you will give me a thumbs up. That helps me reach more viewers. If you are a returning viewer or subscriber, thank you so much for stopping back by. If you're new to my channel and would like to know when I upload more videos, I hope you'll hit that subscribe button below. Thanks again. I hope you're having a crafty day. Bye-bye.